Happy eclipse. Can you hear me okay? You guys can hear my voice? Yeah. It's been a Mercury retrograde day already. Anybody else feeling the shade, the retro shadow? I led a workshop this morning, a Gemini season workshop for people who are in my extended subscription. And it was lovely. But the video got kind of messed up. Don't worry if you were there. It still works, but I didn't get quite the thing I wanted. And I was going to share that here, but then it didn't work. So one thing about Mercury retrograde that I'm working with, and if this is helpful for you, take it, is that any mistake or thing that doesn't turn out the way that you want it to, or you think you want it to, is an opportunity for something else to happen, and that thing is going to be better. That's how I'm trying to work with Mercury retrograde right now. As it's coming up, I'm doing a thing that any astrologer would tell you not to, which is that I'm going on a trip, and I'm leaving basically as Mercury stations retrograde, and I'll be traveling most of that time. I don't know if any astrologer would tell you not to, but it's a thing, right? You hear about Mercury retrograde and you're like, don't do anything. But I don't know. We can't put our lives on pause for astrology. We have to work with it and its symbolism and think into it. So yeah, anyway, here we are. And I wanted to say happy eclipse. I hope that you woke up and saw the blood red moon where you were. Total lunar eclipse. I wanted to offer some reflections on the full moon and the eclipse. And I think I want to offer these reflections from a very personal place, because this full moon is aspecting my chart really intensely. And so, any astrologer that we tune in with, right? They're speaking from their perspective. And that's something I've been thinking about with Sagittarius as an energy, because it's an energy of teaching, it's an energy of astrology, it's also an energy of proclaiming a point of view about something, and oftentimes meaning making. And so as I mentioned, this is a full moon that hits my chart pretty strong. I have Jupiter and Uranus conjunct in early Sagittarius. And this full moon is exactly conjunct to my natal Uranus. So that's a thing. Anybody else out there born in the early 80s, you might have this aspect also, have Uranus in early Sag. And other early 80s people might also have Chiron in Gemini, which is what I have. Chiron at 2 degrees Gemini. So this is a full moon, right? And the full moon is an opposition between two signs, Gemini and Sagittarius in this case. And I have that opposition in my natal chart. So I'm seeing some of you, yes, 81 baby, other people saying, yes, you, 83. Yeah, I'm 1983. People who are 1983 are going to potentially have what I have, especially if you were born in the summer. Jupiter and Uranus really close to each other in Sag. And then Chiron in Gemini. Now, if you are also a person who was born in the summer of 1983, maybe you're my astro twin, and you two have some of your personal placements in Virgo, early Virgo, because I have those as well, Venus and Mercury. So those three signs in my chart are really lit up with this full moon. And if you are a person that has placements in the early mutable signs, this is a full moon to pay attention to. And not all full moons and not all eclipses are going to be the same in terms of how we feel them. And that's true for astrology in general. It's when the astrology is really hitting our charts. And so you can think of yourself as an instrument, right? And the astrology is playing you. It's plucking at your strings and stuff. So is an eclipse today. With an eclipse, there is association with karma, with the idea of like everything that has happened in the past has created this moment now. We're in this moment now, moving into the future from the direction that we have come from. The future and the past are, spiraling around each other. Time isn't linear. It's a spiralic time that we live in. And at eclipses, there's this feeling that the past comes forward into the present moment, and then the future gets opened up in a way that is kind of different. Like there's an opportunity to shift the slant of your spiral. You can think of it like that. Like, do I want to spiral in the same way that I spiraled last time, or do I want to try a new spiral? Eclipses are, you can think of the symbol of the obscuration of two lights, right? The sun or the moon, always in relationship to the earth. And so in this symbolism, we could think of, this meeting of different parts of our consciousness, of the left and the right brain, of the kind of like more personal self and then the higher self or the spiritual self, or the self and then the great is that we are all part of. Like there's something that's coming together at an eclipse, and in these times we often have a new insight, like we have a new idea, or something happens, something wants to give way in a different way. There's a shift that can happen. Oftentimes between eclipses there are really remarkable shifts that happen, and we'll look back at these times and go like, wow, yeah, a lot changed then. And so again, especially if the eclipse is hitting your chart directly, and if you have a lot of aspects that are happening with the astrology as it happens, those are going to be times that are more potent for you. So with this idea of like karmic energy, the past is represented by the South Node in astrology, and the future, the direction that we're heading, is represented by the North Node. Someone's asking if I'll post it, and I will post this. It always takes me a while to get the captions because I don't have that thing yet from Instagram, so captions will come like tomorrow, but I'll post it. Anyway, North Node, South Node, future, past. One symbol of the eclipses is the Ouroboros, which is the serpent eating its own tail. And so the serpent's head would be the North Node and the tail would be the South Node. So think about this kind of spiralic nature of time, the like trippiness of evolution, right? Like everything is repeating constantly with variations. And this is what evolution is. It's like repeat, but every time it's a little bit different. Our DNA is shifting. We are evolving. We are here in a moment of change, in this cycle, in this river of time, evolving. At any given moment, you are changing. You are in the middle of change. Your DNA is changing literally, right? Your thought forms are changing. Your habits are changing. How you think about things and what you believe is changing. So in these eclipse moments, here's an incredible opportunity, right, to move into change with consciousness, using the symbolism of this time. Now I'm scared that my phone is getting too hot. So let's see if I can find more shade. I'm excited that it's warm. My phone is not excited that it's warm. The South Node, right now, the transiting South Node is in Sagittarius. The transiting North Node is in Gemini. So this is an axis, it's a polarity between the two nodes, and then between the two signs. The nodes, by the way, are not objects. They're places where the Earth's ecliptic lines up with the moon's orbit and our, where we are around the sun. So this is when eclipses happen, as we get that alignment. So South Node in Sagittarius is the tail. North Node in Gemini is the head. We are releasing in the direction of Sag. We're moving in an evolutionary compulsion towards Gemini. Okay, so I'm going to speak from my personal experience here. Take what is useful to you. Feel free to freely associate, but please don't take the thing that I'm saying as like the meaning you have to make. This is how it's landing for me today. So as a natal South Node Sag person, some of the things that I'm working with today are letting go of ownership of truth, right? Like, as a North Node Gemini person, I work on the internet. I've been compelled to share information on the internet. And so I'm part of a collective of people, right? And we're all here sharing information. And one of the things about being in this space is that there's so much complexity, right? And so many different points of view. And it's if we approach it like that, it's very rich. And for me as a person who teaches, and as a person who teaches meaning-making devices, like astrology or embodiment or something like that, I come from lineages of teachers who hold the truth. Like, this is something that I know very personally. Like, I've studied with people who we might call it gurus, or, very powerful teachers who really command a space. They center themselves in what they're teaching. And that's the model I've been given. And so as I started to teach, that was also how I started to teach. And I feel constantly that is not the way that I want to teach. That's not the kind of information that I want to share, because I feel a lot of wounding from that personally. I feel like, there were experiences I had with teachers where I just grew so much and I opened so much and they helped me so much to understand, but then they were a human, right? And so they did something and it disappointed me. But because they couldn't exist in their humanness, they had to be like this elevated teacher, then there was harm that happened. So for example, there was a meditation teacher of mine who I dearly loved, and this teacher gave brilliant talks on addiction. And there was never any revealing that this teacher was addicted themselves. And when they died of an overdose, it was incredibly heartbreaking. And it was very shocking for some people. It wasn't shocking for me, but it was heartbreaking because it felt like we could have held you there. We could have been your friends, like, I'm an addict too, right? Like, we're all addicted to something. And this was part of this person's teaching. So how, for me, as a person who teaches, who offers insight into something, like, can I also be a human? That's a question that I'm asking right now in this full moon, in this place of Sagittarius, early Sag. Because I'm very Sagittarian, I have Jupiter and Uranus conjunct in early Sagittarius. I love making meaning out of things. I get so excited about it. I'm super enthusiastic. I'm really opinionated. I study a lot. I can do the thing that Sagittarius does, which is to synthesize information and like see a big picture. And I'm obsessed with like truth, right? Like, what is truth? And part of the journey, of course, is that truth is an is, right? It's an is. It's not anything that we can define. But for me, this moment of the full moon really feels like a big call to feel my way into the future, into an evolution where everybody can share in their wisdom, and we can like learn from each other in really like exciting and brilliant ways. I want to feel past this thing that I have felt a lot of teachers competing with each other. That's very much been an experience that I've had coming from the lineages that I've had, where it's one teacher will think the other teacher's full of shit, and everybody's proclaiming that their way is the right way. And when other truths then exist and other ways then exist, then it's like we have to denigrate them. That is so violent, right? And we see this happening in the world. We see this happening all over the place. And it's the conceptual causes a lot of times of many of the wars, or at least some parts of them. It are just fundamental disagreements in terms of like what truth is, or who has the ticket on being right, or whose God is the right God, right? So for me, like, I grew up with a parent who was very opinionated, super opinionated. And this person had a kind of evangelical quality to them. They could speak with a lot of conviction. And this parent of mine was also really mean. And when our points of view came into conflict, they would use language to cut me down. And if anybody else out there has grown up with a verbally abusive parent, like, it is psychological abuse. And the way that that can twist a person's mind, right, is incredible, because you learn to argue against yourself. So for those of you that have Chiron and Gemini, I don't know if any other folks out there are, feeling this. Like, one of the ways that I'm feeling my Chiron and Gemini placement that today is being illuminated by the sun, is I can change how I'm talking to myself. I can change how I'm thinking. And I can change how I'm using language. And that change has to happen on so many levels at all the same time. And I'm really feeling the power of my words to create my reality. And when I speak in ways that are damaging, I feel damaged. And when I speak in ways that are healing, I feel healed. And I'm wanting to make choices to use my language effectively. I'm wanting to make choices to use my internal language effectively. Like, other Chiron Gemini people out there might, or anybody with much Gemini at all, might resonate with, like, I can get really obsessive in my thinking, and I can spiral around things in a really intense way. That's part of my gift as a person who wants to convey information, but it's also part of my wounding as a person that likes to tell negative stories about myself in the world. So part of what I'm feeling in this eclipse is like, okay, I gotta let go of some stuff. I have to let go of the idea of being right about any kind of truth. I have to let go of my thoughts. As I let go of my inner narratives, and as I'm trying to reshape language, I'm letting go to the belief that that language is real. And this is a big one for me today. And it's like, it's not necessarily a new thought for me, but it came in a new way. It felt like more clear today. And part of why I think it's feeling more clear is that today's full moon is also square with Jupiter in Pisces. And so we have access right now to some profound truth, I think, if we can make the space to tune in and listen. And just as an aside, I want to say that, it's not an aside because this is very much about my Chiron placement. I feel like the space was created for me to tune in, to listen when I was, after the workshop happened, after I got to spend time with everybody who was there. And I got to offer language. This is a Chiron and Gemini. It's like one of the things Chiron and Gemini can do is heal itself and offer healing through language. But then it was after, when I was thinking about everybody's comments and after thinking about their faces, that then I started to have my own teaching come in. Like I started to go, oh, that's what this one's about for me. And that happens to me frequently. It's like, information is here. I'm like, oh, this is astrology. It makes sense. How is it happening for me? I don't fucking know. But then after sharing it, after moving with your energy, then I have some more information. So I just wanted to say that. But now I forgot where I was going. What was I talking about? It was the square to Jupiter. Oh, the healing through language. Yeah. Healing through language. I was so excited to tell you, and then I forgot my whole point. So in the South Node with Sag, we have to let go of belief systems. And wherever Sagittarius is in your chart, you should look at your house placements. That's a place where, maybe there are belief systems that are just ready to let go. One thing for me that I've been thinking about, is this belief system. I have Sag in the 5th house, other Leo risings out there. So the 5th house is a place where there's specialness. So I have this belief system, right, that's wrapped up in the teaching thing, where it's like, oh, you have to be special. You have to be one of a kind. And the thought that that's the thing that you have to be, in the way that it's framed in like Western capitalism, colonialism bullshit, is like making the assumption that everybody is the same, and somehow you have to set yourself apart and you have to compete and you have to like be better. That's bullshit. If instead we had a point of view that was like, everybody is really unique, right? And everybody is really special. And if we give each other the opportunity to be that for one another, we will succeed. You know, people are, wow, come in so many different offerings, you know, so many different things coming through, so many different people in so many different ways. And that is a teaching of Gemini, right? That's a North Node Gemini teaching. Like, let's be in this like complexity of who are you and what do you do? What you got over there? Like, oh, maybe, yeah, I could try that. Like, nobody has the ticket on truth. Nobody has the ticket on the one right way. And that's a Sagittarius release point. So if you think into your chart, you know, think into like, do you feel like that in your life? Do you ever go through that? You know, do you go through that thing where you're like, I have to be right about something? That's a Sagittarius delusion, that I have to be right about something, right? Gemini can make a joke. Just make a joke, right? See it another way. There's a square to Neptune all Gemini season long for the next 2 weeks as we go through the eclipses. We have squares to Neptune. Today, Mercury and Venus are square to Neptune. On the new moon solar eclipse, the sun and moon plus Mercury retrograde will be square with Neptune. So we get all this square Pisces energy. And the squares can be really challenging. They can really fuck us up. But they can also be very motivating and very helpful if we tune in with them and take on the challenge. So Pisces square, again, I'm going to speak personally. I have been feeling this one in my relationship to alcohol and weed a lot. Like, the Gemini Sagittarius axis for me is lit. My brain is going so fast. I feel anxious a lot. I need to like chill out. It is really easy for me to just get stoned, right? Or drink. And that's a fine choice for me to make plenty of the time. I'm not at all going to say it's not. I believe that substances can help us out if they're used in moderation. Moderation is a practice. I got to get in my Virgo and do some other things too. So that square to Pisces can get balanced if we can tune in with Virgo energy, just as, you know, a suggestion. Some of you would end up in the hospital. Do you think the anxiousness is more Gemini or Neptune or both? I think it's their meeting. You know, Gemini is like, it's mental. It's like, give me the information, what's going on. I need to know, like, make it make sense to my brain. Neptune in Pisces is like, I don't know what's going on. Actually, I have no idea. And we're all feeling that right now. Like, that Neptune Pisces energy is like, what the fuck is going on? Like, there's a global pandemic. There are crazy wars happening. There is so much death happening. There's so much brutality. At the same time, there's like all these cracks in the structures. There's all this light that's shining through and that is coming through really strongly. And there are people waking up and doing things really differently. I don't know how you're feeling it. You know, I feel this like, you know, and this is very eclipse energy, right? It's like the light and the shadow rising together. Like, I feel so intense in some ways and like so aware of my bad patterns. And then in other ways, I really feel my healing. I feel my evolution. I feel the point. So yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling super anxious right now, really overwhelmed, having trouble sleeping, having really intense dreams. That Pisces, this is the thing I was trying to remember. That Pisces square is the focal point. It is the stress point. And so when the tension of the opposition becomes intense, we get shoved onto the stress point. And so we're going to reach for it where it will be compulsive. So some people might feel it as like, I want to check out, me, right? Like, I'm like, I gotta go, right? Get me high. Some people are going to feel super emotional, breaking down a lot, having that Pisces like overwhelmingness of like, fuck. You know, some people might want to check out on TV, like take me into another land. Let me drown myself in a story. Some people might feel just really brain fogged and super tired and like, oh my God, I can't process. It's like so overwhelming. Some people might be very symptomatic right now. This is definitely a Neptune Pisces thing, breaking out in rashes, having stomach aches, having weird shit with your allergies, like feeling off, you know, for some reason. So lots of ways that stress point can get activated. One thing, I saw a text from someone earlier. If you're listening, I'll respond to you soon. Pisces rules the feet. You know, maybe it's like you're so intense that you stub your toe and then it's like, then you have to pay attention to that. So yeah, notice, you know, how are these coming out? Now, there is a balance opportunity with Virgo, okay? And Virgo energy, discernment. This is a big one. Discernment. You got a lot to think about. Do you need to think about it? Right? Do you? Check in with the power of your language. Check in with the power of your thoughts. Some things don't matter. This is Virgo coming in to help the other mutable signs. Some things don't matter. Put them down. Don't let them stress you out. Inhale, exhale. They don't matter. Virgo practices, right? Like, okay, everything is really chaotic right now, but I'm going to try and keep up a meditation practice, even for 5 minutes a day. I know it'll help me. Speaking for myself personally, I should probably definitely do that, right? Because it also helps balance our addictive tendencies. Gemini, Chiron. Oh, I was talking about my natal placement in Chiron. Yeah. Service, you know, Virgo, service. Like, shit is really overwhelming. Okay, what can I do that's practical? Yeah? Go be of service. Help somebody out. It will really probably make you feel better. Take care of an animal, right? Like Virgo rules like animal care, right? Take care of an animal. Take care of a garden. Be of service to somebody else. Be practical. Apply yourself. Like, these are ways that we can kind of help ground that energy. And then really, like, as we go through these eclipse portals, remember it's a portal. Really try and stay present as much as you can. I think like we can use that square from the Pisces, from the Pisces out there. One way we can use it is to just really surrender. Like, I don't know what's happening. Do you? I have no idea. I mean, astrology is helpful, but I have no idea. And I don't think any of you do either. So what the fuck, you know, like we don't know, and we don't know what's going to happen. And we can really like feel into what do we want to happen? What do we want to move towards? And that is definitely a potential that I feel with this eclipse, is like using that square from Pisces and from Neptune to really open up to the higher self, open up to the spiritual communion, open up to divine love, you know, and love yourself as much as you can. Practice loving yourself, practice using language to love yourself, right? And then use your thoughts skillfully. Like, what you think, you shape. What you think, you pour attention to. What you speak, you shape, right? Tune in. Like, what do you want to be bringing into form through your attention, through your intention, through your language? That feels like a really big one for me right now. Yes. Yeah, the days between eclipses can feel really weird. Try not to get freaked out. Like, if you feel really triggered, try not to get freaked out. Again, with Mercury retrograde coming up, if things don't go the way that you've planned, take some deep breaths. Try and calm your brain, relax your brain. And then tell yourself that it's because something else wanted to happen, and try and look around and feel into like, well, what else could want to happen right now? Like maybe that wasn't actually the way I needed to go. And tune in with the moment, you know, let go of the idea that you need to know where you're going, and try to get into the flow. That square with Neptune right now is, I think, it's either that or you feel really confused or you're overwhelmed, and probably both, you know, because I don't feel like I'm in the flow at all most of the time. I mean, that's not true. I would say I feel in the flow like 60-70% of the time. That's pretty good. But definitely not all the time. Some days I feel really not in the flow. I can barely see your comments because there's sun on the screen, so I probably missed a whole bunch of them. Trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to share. Mercury and Venus are traveling really close together right now, and as Mercury stations retrograde, it's conjunct with Venus. And yeah, I mean, so as a natal Chiron Gemini person, I really, like, one way I also feel that myself, again, having to do with the wounding of language coming from a verbally abusive situation. You know, it's like, I want to feel that the parts of my brain that have split apart from each other, you know, that are fighting against each other, because I have a part of my brain that's always going to be like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And that part of my brain is split apart from the part of my brain that's like, oh, I'm interested in this, or I like that person, or I have some value in the world, right? Like you experience verbal abuse. And by the way, we've all experienced it because we all live in a verbally abusive culture, and like it's out there. And certainly like there are a lot of, you know, intersections within identities that experience a lot more verbal abuse. So we're all split, you know, and some of us have a lot of splits happening, you know, or places where it's like different voices kind of arguing with each other in our brains. I really feel like that a lot. And as I'm feeling into like, okay, how do I want to make sense of this Mercury-Venus connection and their square with Neptune? I've been really trying to like love my brain, you know, and feel like when I go into a place where I'm arguing with myself, or when I'm stressing out, or if I'm regurgitating someone else's negativity, can I bring love into that part of my brain? You know, can I bring consciousness into that part of my brain? Can I make it feel like it at least has the choice to soften? And with Gemini and Sagittarius from a somatic view, right? Like they rule the arms and the legs, the left and the right. And both of those signs in very different ways can really get into binary thinking, into polarity, and into argument and conflict. Gemini can do it just as much as Sagittarius is really good at it. So how can we heal with love? You know, like how can we use language to heal? So I don't know if this is anything that works for you, feeling into my Chiron Gemini as a, you know, as a place in me that feels very deeply wounded, but also feels like it is a healing journey. And when I tune in with it as a path of healing that I can share, I get healing in return. And when I get healing, you know, then I also make friends. It's like that Gemini quality of like, oh, there's connection. There can be connection that can happen. So if this resonates for you, take it. When I feel those parts of my brain that are arguing against themselves, I try and go into the part of my brain. Like you can touch your head, you can breathe up into your head, you can imagine it, pour your consciousness there, and then just listen to yourself and be like, wow, yes, like affirm your own experience. Like affirm, like, oh, wow, you're feeling really critical. You know, it's okay that you're critical. And then try and find a reason that it's okay that you're critical, right? It's okay that you're critical. It like helps you be discerning when you need to. And then just like you might like with a kid or something, I imagine. I'm not a parent, but it's like, how do you think that this language that you're using is making that part of you feel? Like the part of you that's trying to express itself. And try and teach my brain compassion for itself and like feel the feeling of speaking down to myself. That's what I'm trying to do with my brain, is like actually feel like, oh God, when I use language like that with myself, it feels really bad. It just feels so bad. Just like I might say to like a kid that just insulted somebody else, like how would that make you feel? And then if I can feel into that, then I can also feel like, what would I like to feel? What's the message I want to tune in with? And then I can try and feel that. Okay, so I hope any or all that is helpful for y'all. I'm wishing you all the best on this full moon and eclipse. Bye for now.